Today's lesson, we're going to be delving into the causes of anxiety, panic, and depression, and then ways to find healing in those areas. We're going to actually start looking at the puzzle pieces that we talked about in the backpack of life. If you remember, the puzzle pieces are those emotions that we have not dealt with, that we put into our backpack of life, and they end up making the backpack heavier and heavier. I say that there are 3 actual treatment plans for anxiety. Anybody can try any of them they want to, but I'm going to share with you the one that God used to bring real healing into my life. Now, the body's treatment plan is to break all these wounds and these emotional issues up into puzzle pieces and to put them away in a box and put them in your backpack and then carry that around with you for the rest of your life. And whenever the puzzle pieces, anything that happens in your life or another instance of hurt or pain come along, and it even hints of letting these puzzle pieces come together, that's where anxiety, panic, and depression come from, okay? So we have to learn these 3 methods of being able to deal with this. So that's the body's treatment plan, is to put it away in a box and learn how to carry it. Now, the problem with that plan, people might think it's working, but the problem is you get more and more pieces in here, and this load gets heavier and heavier. And in the end, it's even like toxic waste. I wished I could have some oozing stuff coming out of this box, because this will actually seep out toxic waste into everything positive that's in your box. Remember, we talked about the balance. Well, this toxic waste can mess up your balance. We talked about establishing home, and this toxic waste from this box can mess up your sense of where home is and how to get there. We also talked about the BLT process. Well, that toxic waste from that box will eventually start to affect this to where it doesn't even work anymore. So the body's plan, even though some people may think it works for them because they'll just stuff it away, well, that's where your anxiety, your panic, and your depression is coming from. I've been to many counselors in my lifetime, and I'll tell you what the counselor's plan is. The counselor will tell you, and sometimes it works great for people, but what they see, this is the ugly, I call this the monster of the puzzle pieces, and we'll talk about in the next lesson. But what a counselor says is, see all these ugly pieces? We're going to look at every one of them. We're going to try to look at them and see how you can carry this around with you and still function in life. Now, for a lot of people, counseling does help. But I'm telling you, I came to a point in my life where I said, I don't want to just learn how to carry this, because that's what my body wanted me to do, and that's what counseling wanted me to do, is learn how to carry this ugly monster box around with me as it got bigger and bigger and seeped out more toxic waste. Now, let me tell you what God's plan is and how He brought real healing into my life. And it just shows you His love and compassion. God says, let's take one little piece and take it through the BLT process one at a time. And God doesn't care how long it takes. He's very patient. He's very kind. And He says, let's take this one little piece. And then He says, then I will help you carry this, but we're going to empty this box out, because as we deal with each piece, we can start to lay it aside and not have to deal with it anymore. My recording engineer is going to find a way to post these for you on this video, but I've done actual research, medical research, on the most common causes of emotional upheaval and anxiety and panic and depression. And I have made puzzle pieces, darn it. I'm making a mess of them. Puzzle pieces for each one, okay? And there are 8 of them. And let me just tell you what they are, because we're going to talk about them. One is abandonment. Another is rejection. Another is neglect. Then loss of identity, hopelessness, guilt, shame, and being devalued. These are the main emotions that can cause us trouble and stir up these feelings, the feelings of anxiety, panic, and depression. Now, I'm going to give you an example. What you do is when you decide to hand this whole ugly, ugly box, this monster box, to hand it over to God and say, okay, God, let's start working on this. So you take one little piece. I'm going to tell you an example of something that happened to me just recently. And I'm going to find the right puzzle piece. I recently had an exacerbation of an illness that I'm dealing with, and I was put in the hospital. And it just so happens that my doctors are specialists, and they're all about 55 to 60 miles away from here, and that's where I was in the hospital. So I had no family with me. I didn't know anybody in the hospital. Everybody was strangers to me. Now, I'm telling you, in my previous days, that would have brought up terrible, terrible anxiety within me, being alone for 5 days in a hospital with tests being run all the time. But God and I have worked on this before. So what I did is I went through those 8 emotional causes of anxiety, panic, and depression, and I said, okay, which one kind of fits this? Well, for me, it was abandonment. Now, there's many times in our lives that we can feel abandoned. The definition of abandonment is when your emotional needs are not being met, and that leaves you feeling rejected, unloved, or painfully lonely. Now, I could have been panicking from all those emotions while I sat up there in the hospital, but God had helped me do this work previously, and that's what I want Him to be able to do in your life. What God did for me before is we took it through the BLT process. Slowly, I would have posted this puzzle piece up, like say on a mirror or in my kitchen, somewhere where I had to look at it every day and ask God to bring healing in that area. So God and I would look at, how did this begin? Okay, my most recent one would be that of being left in a hospital out of town all by myself, okay? What's the lie it's trying to tell me? Nobody loves you. Nobody cares about you. Nobody's going to come visit you. All these people who you don't know, they don't care about you. Those are all lies. What's the truth? The truth is, my whole family would have been up there in a minute if I would have asked them to come. I prayed and asked God's favor in the hospital, and everyone in that hospital treated me with kindness and respect throughout the entire visit. Okay? So the truth is, I am never alone. So I take it through the BLT process, and that's what God did in my past. And so when here I am in a hospital with total strangers, and I don't want my family to have to drive those 55 miles to get there. So me and God just did our best, and I did not panic, and I did not feel lonely or anything. And I did just fine. And it's all because of the work that God had done previously. For you, whenever you have an anxiety attack, a panic attack, or a depressive episode, start going through the emotional issues that we will post on here and say, which one fits this? Okay? Now, if it's hopelessness, let's take it through the BLT process. And how this really works is over time, every time I would panic or be anxious or depressed about, let's say, abandonment, God would say, let's go back a little further. You remember this instance, but let's keep going back. What's another time when you felt abandoned? And we go back even into our childhood and say, when might I have felt abandoned? And then I take that through the BLT process. When you do that, then you are able to take this peace, because God has brought healing to you by going back and back and back until you've applied the BLT process to as far back as you can remember. And then you put that piece aside. And then you say, okay, God, let's go for the next piece. What's the next one on the list? Then you take it through that process. And that's God's healing plan. And the thing about that is it makes this load, this gets lighter and lighter and lighter. And it stops seeping out toxic waste in your life. I lead a very happy and peaceful life right now. And I won't say that I never experience these emotions, but since God and I have worked through them and He's brought healing in those areas, it's a lot easier to process through them and say, everything's going to be okay. And I just had a couple of scriptures I wanted to share with you. What I did for each of these, and you can actually do this yourself if you put these on 3x5 cards, or actually get a big puzzle. This is just a big kid's puzzle, and I wrote these on the back. But I looked up online, what does the Bible say about abandonment? And then it gave me scriptures. Now, one of the ones that I took from there just recently when I was getting ready for this teaching is in Deuteronomy 31:6. It says, be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of those who have abandoned you. For it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. And see, that's what I kept in mind while I was in the hospital. That scripture itself. And then I know you're going to recognize this one. And it's great for abandonment and a lot of other issues. But it's the Psalm of David. It says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. How can you have issues with abandonment and hopelessness when you have words like that speaking such reassurance and calmness into your life? And that's how you deal with that. I would like to see you make yourself some cards with these 8 most common causes of anxiety, panic, and depression, and pray and ask God to help you with each one of them to find healing in those areas. I talk about this process that God took me through for healing in my book, Breaking the Bondage of Abuse, Finding Healing in the Book of Psalms. By using this same method that God took me through, I actually explain it in more detail and how it affected my life in this book. This is how I came up with so many scriptures. Most of my scriptures are from Psalms to help me find calmness and peace and reassurance. You can find this book on Amazon. The link to this book will be in the description of this video. Thank you.